Good morning. Welcome to Dornbush Download 172. Morning, Rob.
Morning, Michael.
Yeah, we're out here on the balcony. It's another glorious January day.
Glorious day. As long as you don't need any rain, it's glorious. That's right.
Absolutely. Yeah, looking a little bit dry at the moment, isn't it? That's for sure. So we could do with a bit. But mate, International Monetary Fund coming out with a few numbers.
Yeah, a few stats. Yeah, just over the past week, they've just announced global growth forecast, economic growth forecast for the 2008 year. They've upgraded by 0.2% up to 3.9% for global growth this year. So it's upgrade US, Germany, China, Japan, Brazil. So it was a pretty positive forecast by the IMF. So that was all good. They didn't upgrade Australia, but they didn't reduce our forecast either. But where it's good for Australia is our trading partners, I suppose. If our trading partners are getting upgraded, like your US, your Japan, your Chinas, it flows through to Australia's economy as well. Where you've got your tourism, there's more likely to have some tourists travel to Australia. Education, there's more overseas students being educated in Australia. And also your agriculture and your mining as well. Exports will benefit from overseas trading partners going well. So there was a good upgrade by the IMF. That's a forecast, so hopefully it all comes to fruition.
Yeah, no, I mean, certainly, mate. I mean, 17 was a great year, really, for particularly those bigger economies. You know, the American economy really started to get the big wheels turning again. China's a bit of a tricky one to gauge. There's some mixed messages out of China, but of course they're a major economy, of course, these days. Japan as well, but you're right. I mean, there's been a lot of activity in Europe, particularly Germany, France not so much, but the German economy has been very strong.
Strong, yeah. Like the US S&P 500 went up 19% last year, so it was a good year on the market. So, and it keeps powering on at the moment.
Yeah, no, their unemployment I think is back under 5% again. So no, the Yanks are certainly doing a few things right there at the moment. And obviously too, it was from a low base from a few years ago, but certainly some good numbers coming through there.
Donald Trump got his tax cuts through, so people are pretty positive and upbeat about that. So that's helping the market kick on as well.
Yeah, it's quite extraordinary, those tax cuts. I didn't realise that the corporate tax rate in America in the high 30% mark was actually so high. So that reduction back to 21, I think it is, an enormous drop. There's a little bit of grey area there, isn't there? Because I think some of the tax or the state tax rebates rather aren't going to be applicable anymore, and there's a few other little sort of quirks in there, but it's an enormous drop, isn't it?
Yeah, hopefully it's a good impetus for the economy. So that's what it's all about, to stimulate the economy further. So
yeah. And I think his big infrastructure plans are on the table again to hopefully get the green light through, and again that'll, I guess, just provide further impetus to the US economy. So
Mr. Trump, whether you like him or not, economically he seems to be proving pretty good over there. So
yeah, well played, Donald. Mate, we thought too we might touch on a couple of things in the superannuation world. 1 July 17, so 1 July last year, there was quite a few changes actually that came through, but certainly one that we've been talking about that doesn't actually come in for another few months, but certainly is something for, I guess, a lot of, particularly our senior Australians out there to consider.
Yeah, for sure. Like a really attractive one, I believe, is the downsizing contribution into super. So this all was announced in the budget last year, in May last year. It actually became law in December, so it's in play from 1st of July 2018. So this year you'll be able to take advantage of it. But what it basically is, if you're 65 years or over and you want to downsize your principal place of residence, you can actually contribute $300,000 of the surplus money, if you've got $300,000 or $100,000, whatever the surplus money is, into super as a non-concessional contribution. So there's non-concessional contribution. There's no tax to be paid going into super or anything like that. It gets it into a superannuation system where a low tax environment. So when I say 300,000 as well, it's 300,000 each. So if for a couple, it's 600,000 that you can get into the superannuation environment. which is, like I said, it's a low tax environment. You can convert your super to a pension where there's a zero earnings tax environment, so it's pretty attractive.
It is, Rod, yeah. I mean, certainly 65, it gets more and more difficult, doesn't it, to get money into super, and then really the gates shut altogether at 75. Whereas, this legislation, it doesn't matter what age you are. So, it's certainly going to benefit some people out there that are perhaps sitting on a big, lumpy asset like their principal place of residence to be able to manoeuvre a bit more money into super. So no contribution limits, no work test. It's really quite a generous piece of legislation. One thing to possibly just bear in mind is, the $1.6 million rule that came in there on the 1st of July, and that's, how much you can actually put into an income stream. Mm-hmm. So if you've already got 1.6 already, in an income stream at the moment, this downsizing contribution can't be added on top of that. But even if your total balance is still above 1.6 million, you can still get it in. So there's a sort of half a window of opportunity there if you've got one of those, fortunate enough to have a larger balance. So no, we think there's some really, really good potential in this piece of legislation, particularly those, again, looking at downsizing.
Like you mentioned the work test there before, getting money in. Like normally if you're over 65, you have to meet some work test criteria to be able to make a contribution. Well, that just doesn't apply. Like if you're not working, you can still take advantage of this 300,000 contribution.
No, it is, and there's I don't think either there's a requirement to actually buy a new home, is there?
No,
so there's really quite some broad sort of flexibility with this legislation, which is, I guess, a little bit surprising because over the last couple of years we've seen the government make it just tougher and tougher to get money into super, whereas this is a bit of a reversal. But again, I guess the government's, my simple brain trying to think their ideology is, people getting out of those big 4 or 5 bedroom homes, downsizing, potentially moving into retirement villages. Again, the legislation is not overly clear about aged care and retirement villages, but certainly, reading it today, it seems like, it's all kosher. So.
Yeah. Oh, very positive. Very positive. Yeah, the government's just trying to make it more attractive to put money into super. So, and like you say, people moving out of those larger houses potentially helps the lack of housing problem. More people can live in those houses.
Yeah, absolutely. I think another thing too, Rod, that was interesting that did go through the gate as of 1 July last year was basically the ability for employees to claim tax deductions for contributions to super as well. The old rule was that I think it was less than 10% of your total assessable income could come from an employed source, effectively, or from employment. Whereas now they've basically taken that off. So if you're an employee, you can actually now potentially get a tax deduction for making contributions to super. On the flip side of that, they unfortunately dropped the deductible contribution level to a maximum of 25,000, certainly for this financial year. But if you're juggling maybe some capital gains or a few things like that, and you're not quite getting up to that $25,000 concessional contribution, you might be able to tip a little bit more in and potentially get a tax deduction for it. So a little bit of scope there as well.
It is if you've got the right circumstances, like you say. It's a bit of a sleeper. Like it's announced, and it's really positive for a person that can take advantage of it. It can be really beneficial. But it's been a bit of a sleeper, not too much spoken about, but it is. It's out there. For sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's even a little bit of an offshoot to that as well, I think. And I'm pretty sure the balance limit's 500,000. If you've got less than 500,000 dollars in your super fund, you can actually accumulate the concessional contribution, or up to the concessional contribution limit that you don't use over those years as well. So again, if you've got a big capital gain bubbling away and it gets crystallised at some stage, you may potentially be able to squeeze a bit out of these deductible contributions. But
are you saying the government's done something positive again with super?
I know, lo and behold,
what's happening?
Crikey, what is going on? But yeah, no, there is, and as you say, Rod, it's a bit of a sleeper. There really hasn't been too much, there's too much sort of conversation about that one. So if you've got any questions or queries about that, I'll just add very quickly too. We've been talking to a lot of our clients about those that are in transition to retirement phase, or this strategy of transition to retirement, where they're, usually salary sacrificing some money into their super fund and drawing out an income stream, basically to either supplement their reduced income from employment or self-employment. Been a few changes that came in, again, 1 July last year. So if you are involved in that strategy, probably not a bad idea to have a chat to someone, just make sure you're up to speed, because the goalposts have changed a little bit.
Yeah, good time to review it, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Right, I think that's us done today, mate.
That's it from me.
Right, thanks for watching.
Thank you.